Welcome back everyone to part 2 of the bathroom renovation. I just moved in the new fiberglass tub and it is sitting perfectly on that section of floor that I leveled out in the last episode. So the next thing I'm going to work on are these walls. This one and the one behind me are way out of plumb. So before I can permanently install the bathtub, I'm going to have to straighten up these walls. I just checked the studs with my level to see how far out of plumb they are, and they're really not that bad. At the bottom, they kick in about 1/4 of an inch, and from 4 feet and above, that's where they start to straighten out. So there's a couple ways I can straighten out all of these studs. And one is to bring over my belt sander and take away some of the material. And the other way is to make up some really long shims on the table saw. So I'm kind of not liking the first way just because using the belt sander would really create a lot of dust, and I don't know how effectively I could get it into that corner to straighten those out. So I'm thinking the best way to go is to go to the table saw and make up some shims. This is a really simple shim cutting jig that I made out of some parts that were sitting around here. The bottom is a 1x4 cut 4 feet long, and if you want to make shims that are longer than 4 feet, you can cut this board to whatever length you want your shims to be. Screwed on top of that is another 1x4, and that is because I need a thickness of 1.5 inches here because I'm going to be making my shims out of a 2x4. Screwed on top of that are a couple of 3/4 inch plywood blocks, and I'll explain what they are in a minute. On the back side is another piece of 3/4 inch plywood I'm using as a stop, and this is just a little chunk of wood I put on there as a handle. Now, the thing that makes this jig a taper jig is this little screw right there. I can adjust this screw in or out depending on what thickness of shim that I want to make. I cut it 2x4 4 feet long, and what it does is it just rests inside the jig, and what these two blocks are here and there are just little clamps that help hold the 2x4 in place while I push it through the table saw. Next, I take a measurement from the back and I transfer that measurement between the fence and the outside of the saw blade. Now it's time to cut the shim. To make the next shim, I can't just run this 2x4 through again attached to the jig because it's already tapered. So to make the next shim, I have to disconnect this 2x4 from the two clamping blocks. Then I have to take a measurement from the narrowest end of the 2x4, then take that measurement over to the table saw and transfer that number between the fence and the outside of the blade. Now I can cut the next shim. So there it is, 2 perfectly cut shims, 4 feet long by 1/4 of an inch thick. And to make the rest of them, I just use the jig again, and then no jig, and then back and forth until I get to a point where there's about a 1-inch piece left over, and that's as far as I can safely go on the jig because of the way the clamps are screwed down onto this piece. So it's not a complete waste. I just use the leftover for some other project down the road. I got the shims attached to the wall all the way around the bathtub, and then I ran into a problem over here. That's not the problem, at least not the one right now. It's over here in the corner. So there's a 1/4 inch shim behind the tub, and then there is this lip which helps hold the bathtub to the wall. So the drywall sits on top of this lip. Now, in order to make the wall flush from that point on, I had to cut 1/2 inch tapered shims for every stud all the way over to the end. So sometimes you got to do that little bit of extra work in the beginning just to make your life easier farther into the project. There's just a couple more things I got to do before I can permanently install the bathtub. Now the first thing is that I have to hook up the tub drain, and the second thing is I have to frame up for the closet, which is going to be right here. So tub drain's real easy to do. You just need a tub drain kit like this one and a little tub of plumber's putty. First thing you want to do is you want to rip off a piece of plumber's putty about that big. Then you want to roll it out between your hands like you're making a snake, as if you're 5 years old playing with Play-Doh. Then you're going to go get the finished drain opening piece, flip it over, and apply that snake of plumber's putty to the back of it, like that. We're going to set that aside for just a moment. Now I need the threaded drain pipe with the washer, which goes on top like that, and it slides underneath the bathtub, and the finished drain screws into that. I never bought the proper tool to tighten this piece down, and it's not because it's too expensive or too hard to find. It's just that I don't think I need another specialty tool to sit around or get lost by accident when I need it the most, when a pair of needle nose pliers can do the job. Next, slide a compression nut followed by a compression washer onto the overflow pipe, and the same thing onto the drain pipe of the bathtub. Then put the overflow pipe into the T, and the T goes into the drain of the bathtub. And it looks like I've run into a problem here. I was hoping I wouldn't have to notch this floor joist, but looks like I'm going to have to take about 3/4 of an inch out of it. So hold on a second. Okay, let's try that again. Alright, that's much better. So that should be about as tight to the tub as I can get it. And, ooh, let's take a specialty drain. Nothing is working right now, huh? Oh no. Well, the overflow pipe is too short. So, okay. Looks like a trip to the hardware store. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back from the hardware store. So they had two different types of pipes to fix this problem. They have this type, which is a glue-in type, so it just glues in and makes the pipe longer. And they had another type, which was kind of a coupler, so it had a compression fitting on one side and then one on the other side. So to make that work, I would have to have cut this pipe in half and then put the coupler in, and then the extra piece left over from here would go back in the other end of that coupler, and then I would have a longer piece. Now, I chose not to go with the coupler just because I've had problems with compression fittings in the past, and sometimes, rarely, but they do happen, they will untighten themselves and then cause a leak. So for the protection of my kitchen ceiling below, I figured the glue-in coupler was the better way to go. Oh no, I did that wrong. Hold on. Let's try that again. Okay. Much better. All right. Just caught it in time. Okay, so the nut and the washer. Let's see if it fits now. Goes in there. That goes in there. Perfect. Just what I wanted. Okay. If you remember in the last episode, I did not glue this trap in place because I wasn't 100% sure where the bathtub drain was going to be until I got it installed. Now that I know, I can finally glue in the trap. Okay, now I can tighten up all the compression nuts. The last thing to do is to finish up the overflow inlet. There's a tapered washer that goes on the back side of the tub with the thicker side up. On the inside of the tub, there's a couple of small clips that get pushed in to hold the pipe in place. Now, it's time to screw on the cover plate with the drain holes facing down. I just want to install the drain plug and add a little bit of water just to see if there are any leaks that develop between the bathtub and the drain. I let the water sit in the bathtub for about half an hour, and there was no wetness on the bottom of the tub. Now I want to drain the bathtub and then check the pipes in the back to make sure there aren't any leaks. Everything looks good, it's all nice and dry, so now it's time to build a closet. Okay, finally, now I can finish installing the bathtub. I read the manufacturer's instructions, which is something I hardly ever do, and they said drill a 3/16 of an inch hole through the top rim of the bathtub, and every point there's a stud around the perimeter. Next, to secure the tub to the wall, do not use a drywall screw like this or any other screw which has a tapered head. Now, I'm speaking from the voice of experience here, so if you were to take this screw and put it through the hole and tighten it down, that tapered head is going to act like a tiny little wedge, and almost every time this rim is going to get split, and then you're going to have water damage in the wall in the future. So what I use now is a screw like this. Not only is it great because it's galvanized, but also underneath the head it's flat, so when I tighten this screw down, it gives me a nice secure connection between the tub and the wall. There's a couple different ways to do the tub surround. Now, you could put up cement backer board with tile on top of that, but that takes kind of a long time, maybe 2 to 3 days from start to finish. The second way is a lot faster. There's a 3-piece tub surround kit that is made by the same manufacturer of this bathtub, and it's made out of the same material as the bathtub. The first piece to go in, which is also the largest one, goes right in the back. The next piece that goes in is the one on the right, and that just sits there temporarily while I mark out the holes for the faucet with a dry erase marker at the height of 28 inches off the floor. With an 1.5-inch hole saw, I drill out the 3 holes for the faucet, and with a 5/8-inch Forstner bit, I drill out the hole for the tub spout. I put a bead of silicone caulking on the tab of the right side panel, followed by a 4-inch L-shaped bead of caulk on the top front right corner of the bathtub. Now, I can slide that panel into place. I repeat the same process with silicone caulking on the left panel. Then, I slide it into place. Now, I can drill the holes through the flange of all 3 pieces of the tub surround with a 3/16-inch drill bit. Finally, pushing the side panels of the tub surround tight to the corner, I permanently attach it to the wall with galvanized screws. The bathtub valve is installed from inside the closet, and then is secured in place with 2 pipe clamps. Next, the hot and cold water lines get connected to the faucet. Then, the pipe for the shower head gets connected at the bottom, and now at the top. Finally, the 3 escutcheons for the bathtub faucet get screwed on, followed by the knobs for the hot and the cold, and the diverter valve. Then the tub spout slides onto the pipe and is tightened down with an Allen key. Next thing to do in here is to get the drywall hung up on the walls. So, what do you think, Caesar? Want to help me move some drywall? Come on, let's go. Okay, so what you should be seeing right now is this fun little time-lapse scene of me hanging the drywall in here really quickly, and Caesar following me around the room, being the goof that he was born to be. But instead, we're seeing this. So I get the first piece of drywall up, and I put 2 screws in there, and then I get stung on the wrist by a bee. I had seen a bee which was trying to get out that window, so I thought that's got to be my bee. Then I go and put 2 more screws in the drywall, and I get stung in the eyebrow by another bee. So I jump back to figure out where these bees are coming from, and by that time there's 10 of them flying around the room. And I look out the window there next to the drywall, and I can see there's a swarm of bees outside the house. So I go and get Caesar and I take him home, and I come back with a can of bee spray. So I got this board with a nail on it, and I'm over there, I'm slowly peeling away the insulation next to the window until I run across the beehive. And this bee spray is great because it shoots out of the can like 17 feet away. So I'm standing way out in the hallway, as far as I can anyway, and I soaked down the nest, and there may have only been about 10 to 15 bees left on there, and the rest were flying around the room. So I open up the window and get a piece of cardboard and shoo the rest of them outside, and then I go get my caulking gun and I seal up the joints between the boards next to the window so they won't come back in the wall, and build another nest. So this is what I'm left with, just some nasty old insulation soaked with bee spray. So I'm going to go clean this up, and then we can start that time-lapse scene all over again. Okay, next thing to do is to get some joint compound on these seams and the screws, but before I get to that, there's a couple of things I want to mention, and the first one is the color of this drywall. So this indicates that this is a moisture resistant drywall, and this comes in a few other colors that I've seen anyway. There's a green, there's a purple, and I guess it depends on the manufacturer as to what color you're going to get in your area. This type of drywall is used in moist to wet areas, so kitchens, bathrooms, laundry rooms, basements, places like that. And what makes this stuff so great for those locations is how it's made. So the paper on the front and the back side is impregnated with an anti-mold growing solution. So if this stuff were to be damp or wet on a consistent basis, that it wouldn't grow mold nearly as much as it would if it were just regular old drywall. So I used it on the wall behind you and this wall and obviously the one around the bathtub, but I skipped it on that wall there and the ceiling. Now I did that for just cost cutting reasons, I guess, and really where you'd use this stuff most is where there is water. So there's a toilet, sink, obviously a bathtub there. Those are the places that it would grow mold the most if it were going to do it at all. So also, I guess, there could be some mold growth in the ceiling just from condensation buildup, but as long as that bathroom fan is working and it is really well now that it's vented outside, and it's also connected to the light switch. So when the fan comes on with the light, and so it's guaranteed to be on during a shower much more often than not, because who takes a shower in the dark? So at least I hope no one does. That will be the end of this drywall. So the other thing I want to talk about is how I cut out this box here with the roto saw. So because it was this time lapse video with the camera pretty far away, you really didn't get to see much of this. This was kind of a blur. It was gone in a few seconds. So I used a saw like this. This one's called a roto zip. It's got a bit on there, which is a spiral bit, so you can stab into the drywall and then just move around and cut the shape that you need. And so I intentionally, to show you, left this box uncut, so I can do a much better description and close-up view of how this tool works. After I turn on the tool, I plunge it into the drywall. Then I move it side to side, looking for the inside edges of the box. When I find both inside edges, I lift the tool outside the box, keeping the blade tight to the outer perimeter as I complete the circle. The first step to finishing drywall starts with seaming tape. Now, there are two different types. There's a paper and then there's a mesh. Now, I don't use the paper because I am just terrible with it. How it works is you put a bed of joint compound on the wall, and then you press the tape into that, and that's what adheres the tape to the wall. But the problem I have is almost every time I get an air bubble between the joint compound and the tape, and I don't realize it until after the joint has dried. So I have to scrape it all off and start all over again, and that's just a big waste of time. So I use the mesh tape instead because it saves me a step. This stuff has a self-adhesive backing on it, so all you gotta do is just press it onto the wall, and that's it. Real easy. For years, I used to buy the ready-mix joint compound in the 5-gallon bucket, and I knew that if you let that stuff sit around for too long, it starts growing mold inside the bucket. Then just a few years ago, I found out that if you use that stuff in a wet area like a bathroom, it can start growing mold again there too. So now I use this stuff. This is a dry mix you just add water to, and it's great because it doesn't grow mold. And another thing is that it dries by chemical reaction like concrete does. So I can put a coat on in the morning, sand it off halfway through the day, and put a second coat on later in the day, and I can get twice as much work done out of this than I can out of the ready-mix stuff in the bucket. Okay, don't laugh. I'm using old kitchen tools to mix this stuff up. This is a metal bowl I got from the Salvation Army, and this is a rubber spatula I got from my mom. I don't like mixing up a whole lot of this stuff at once because it does harden pretty quick. So starting off with 2 cups cold water. Always use cold water when you are mixing up something that dries with a chemical reaction, because the cooler the water, the slower the reaction. And the powder is 4 cups onto that. Always add powder to the water, otherwise you're going to end up with lumps. So then just stir it up, start folding it in there, and until we get all the powder absorbed with the water. And I'm looking for a consistency somewhere between peanut butter and mayonnaise. Okay, that looks nice and smooth. So I'm just going to dollop some of this stuff into my drywall box. I start with the easiest part first, and that's the drywall screws. So I just get a little joint compound on my knife, and then I make an X. One pass like this, clean it up the other way. Try it again, put it on, wipe it off. Next, it's onto the seams. So I just get that loaded up like that, and I want to apply it on the side, and then just swipe it up like that, and that's it. A little bit more. There we go. Always be careful not to leave any goobers on the side there, any big lumps, because you'll have to sand those off later. Now it's time for the inside and outside corners. This is the product I use for that. It's essentially paper tape with some metal banding on the inside, and that just strengthens it up. So it's good for the outside corners because it makes them nice and strong. The inside corners doesn't really mean too much to that, but still does the job. Now I know I just complained about how much I hate paper tape, but I've used this stuff for a while, and I've never had a problem with it. It's always stuck to the wall. So I was reading over the instructions here, and it's kind of funny. On number 5 it says apply second kaat of compound. Now I think they're trying to say coat there, and I can assure you that this product, which I've used for probably 2 to 3 years now, is a whole lot better than the person who spell checks for them. As the instructions say, you just apply a generous kaat of joint compound to both sides of the corner. And then you take the tape and you bend it in half. It's already got a nice perforation down the middle there. And you just press it into place like that, getting it nice and tight into the corner. Do a swipe like that. And same on the other side. Put a little compound on the outside there, smooth it out. And that's it. Outside corners are the same procedure as the inside one. Just apply the same compound generously to both sides. And then press in the corner and smooth it out. Just a couple more things to do in here, and then I'm going to let things dry, and I'll be back in a couple hours to do some sanding. Okay, it's been about 4 hours now, and everything in here is nice and dry. I did put a fan in the corner just because corners take longer to dry, so that fan helps speed things up a little bit. Now on to the sanding. Safety first, wear a mask. I know no one wants to hear that during these COVID times, but if you breathe in the dust, it can get stuck in your nose and your sinuses and give you a headache, as well as get stuck in your lungs for a while. And if you do this kind of stuff, the sanding and drywall work for a long time, the dust can lead to COPD. So wear a mask. It'll save your life. Don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with 20 minutes of sanding just because every joint here looks just about the same. So you can see I got a little messy there with the joint compound. So all I'm doing with this hand sander is I'm taking down the high points and then I'm feeling it with my other hand just to see if I got them all or not. And if I don't, just hit it again. Until it feels nice and smooth, and that's just about it. Sanding is all done, and I just mixed up a new batch of joint compounds, so I am ready for the second coat. The first coat, I used the 6-inch knife. Now I'm moving on to the 10. This is the same as before. Joint compound goes on the side. I'm going to try to stretch it out a little bit more here because I'm using a wider knife. It looks pretty good. And then just start at the bottom and swipe up like that. The slower you go, the smoother the finish. And then just like the first time around, clean up any little bits on the side there. For the screw holes, the joint compound shrinks from the first time around. So all you need is a second coat. And same as before, just an X. And that's the last time you'll have to do these. When I do inside corners, I found it's a lot easier to do half of it at a time. So for this pass, I'm gonna go from here to here, and I'm gonna do half of this corner also, so I'm gonna go from there to there. So I'm gonna load up my knife and just go across it sideways. I wanna wiggle that into the corner there. And get this whole thing done. A little bit in the corner. Pull it out all the way to the outside corner. And then I start at the bottom and I slowly drag it all the way up. I got some dry spots in there. Let me try that again. Oh, that looks nice. One more try. It's nice and smooth. Now for the other side, get it tight in the corner, pull all the way out. It's okay if you have air bubbles when you're just applying it on the side like this, because you're gonna squish them out when you draw it from the bottom. Nice and slow. Try that again. There's a couple streaks in there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Get this extra off. All right, that looks nice and smooth. It's been a long day. Got a couple more seams to do in here, then I'm done for the night. So tomorrow morning, I'm gonna come back and do some sanding. Good morning. I just finished sanding in here and everything is looking pretty good. I did find a few spots here and there around the room that need some touch up. And what I do while I'm sanding is I keep a pencil on me. So when I run across something that needs fixing, I just put a little circle around it so I know where to find it later on. If I don't do that, they are really hard to find because it's like white on white. You just can't see it. So what I'm going to do now is pick up where I left off and do the other side of this corner and the one over there. What I'm doing now is exactly the same thing as I did on the other side of the corner, except the only difference now is I've moved on to the next size knife up. This is the 12-inch knife. So I'm just gonna put a little bit more on here and then drag it down. Start at the bottom. Go up like that. See these two lines here? That means there's a little bit of contamination in the joint compound. So let me try that again. All right, much better. That happens from time to time. Just pick up little bits that are stuck to the wall that I don't see while I'm sanding. All right, and same thing on the other side. And start at the bottom. Have a nice slow pass all the way to the top. There's just a couple of spots over here by the bathtub. That looks pretty good. And over here by the ceiling. And there's one final seam over here by where the medicine cabinet's gonna go. There's just a couple spots around the room below 4 feet that could have used a third coat, but I didn't think it was really all that necessary because from here down to the floor is gonna be wall tile. And that's what the next video is all about. The floor is gonna get ceramic tile and the walls are gonna get a nice subway tile. And that's the end of this video. So if you liked what you saw, hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to this channel or haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button and don't forget to ring the notification bell to let you know when the next video is gonna come up. Sorry Caesar couldn't be here for the end of the video, but I just didn't want him around all the dust. All the dust. See, it's getting to me right now. So, Caesar and I will see you in the next video. I just moved in the new fiberglass tub and it is sitting on that new leveled, hi. I moved in the bathtub and it is now sitting on that nude level floor. Caesar, you gonna run away? No, stay up. Caesar. I just checked the studs with my belt sander. I did. This is a belt sander. So there it is, two perfectly cut shims at a 1/4 inch thick. Whoops, right about there. Okay, hi. Now the tub drain's real easy. You just need a drub chain kit, yes. And you're gonna also need a, Caesar's got the fleezers. What do you think, Caesar? Wanna help me move some drywall? Looks like a no to me. Okay, the next thing to do is to get some joint compound on. What this does is it's got a self-adhesive backing on it. If I can find the end here. Come on, where are you? Where is it? There's no end. Oh, or a beginning. Come on. Okay, well, here's the end of that take.